Welcome to the Master Passive Income Show. My name is Dustin Heiner, and I'm here to help you learn how to quit that JOB, that just over broke job, by investing in real estate so you never ever have to work a job again. Today, I'm pumped to bring a fantastic friend of mine who invests in land. He's also building from the land that he bought a self-storage unit, and he also has lots of other land and passive income from it, flipping it, all that sort of stuff. I have a really fantastic investor who's actually going to be speaking at the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference that you need to be at. It's in March in Phoenix. You definitely need to check it out. Go to rubcon.com, REWBCON.com. Check it out. Seth Williams from RETipster, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Hey, Dustin. Thanks for having me. Good to be here again.
So let's jump right into it. Now, you're a land investor, and if anybody wants to go back and listen to how you got started and all that sort of stuff, I interviewed already. Sorry, I don't remember which episode number it was, but it's land. Like if you're looking up anything on my podcast or YouTube, just look for land. You'll find Seth. He does a fantastic job walking us through that. Now, Seth, what are you doing now with your land investing so that, we can see the possibilities of, other than just flipping land, which you can see, buy a piece of land for less than it's worth and then sell it for more. But there are other great things. So what are you currently doing with land?
Yeah. So, aside from just the usual land flipping stuff I've always done, probably the most interesting new development over the past year has been for the first time ever, I have bought a residential lot and rezoned it to commercial. That's something I've never done before. And the reason I've rezoned it is because I'm trying to build a self-storage facility on that property, which is like a whole thing. That's like a whole big dramatic story involved in that. So self-storage is something I've always been interested in for I don't know, as long as like 20 years, like even before I was big into real estate. I've always seen them and been like, man, that'd be interesting to have something like that. Having no idea what's involved with that. And it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago that I started seriously thinking about it and, taking various courses on the subject matter. The sort of conventional wisdom that most people say for a newbie is to go out and buy an existing self-storage facility from like a mom and pop owner who owns a dilapidated Class C storage facility. Like that's the best first move. And I think I would agree with that. That usually is the best first move. I found storage owners from the entire hour drive radius around me, and I sent mail to all of them. And I think I got a total of 5 responses. And of everybody who responded, they all were responding because they wanted to know if I had heard back from anybody else who was selling because they wanted to buy other ones. Or they just wanted like ridiculous amounts, like twice as much as what their facilities were worth. So, and basically what I'm finding out is that, and this is kind of a common thing nationwide, is that it's just a really hard time to buy self-storage right now. People just want crazy prices, kind of like every real estate out there right now. Normally, I would never consider building new. Like I wouldn't even be in the running. But because of that, in looking at the cost of new construction, the numbers just kind of work. And the in terms of like the margins and what the cash flow is going to look like, it's not like amazing, but it's decent enough. It's decent enough to justify, all the trouble that's going to go into doing this. And also, I think it's going to be like really interesting experience to actually develop something like this from the ground up and to actually see what it's like to build something, to rezone something, to just see what it looks like from start to finish. And interestingly, I used to work in commercial financing in my day job, many years ago before I quit that. And so I kind of understand that world, like what it takes to get approved from financing and, what it takes to go through the construction process. So now I'm kind of on the other side of that, getting approved and getting that financing. And so it's just been kind of interesting to see it from this side of things.
Does it seem like it's working out in the way that you think? Or would you, looking back now, is it like, oh man, it would have been better to have bought one that's already built? Because there's a lot of red tape from the government. Rezoning, especially. But then all the things you need to learn, like, oh my goodness, like soil samples, like we mentioned off air, things like that. It's like, what is the deal? We don't normally think about that sort of stuff.
There's many different things you have to think about in terms of the government stuff. So there can be a lot of red tape. In my case, I'm doing this in a fairly rural township. And I've actually found that it hasn't been too bad. The township has not really given me a super hard time. The zoning was like almost like a rubber stamp thing. And I think the reason it's been so easy is because where this parcel is, it's like right on the border of a commercial area. So like it makes total sense for this to change. And as a result of me changing the zoning and building the storage facility, the annual tax bill is going from $300 a year to $36,000 a year. So like
No way.
the township is going to get rich off me as a result of doing this. So
They're like, yes, yes, of course.
yeah, yeah. So like really, like when you really think about it, like the township wants to say yes more than they want to say no. So as long as you give them enough reasons to be like, yeah, like this makes sense. This guy's done his homework. This makes sense. They're going to go along with it. I think if you're talking about a place, I don't know. I've heard there's certain cities out there that make it super difficult for one reason or another, depending on what you're trying to get approved. But in this case, it hasn't been hard. Things that have surprised me that I just never even really knew about. One example is a geotechnical investigation. I didn't even know this was a thing, but whenever you build a new anything, any kind of a building, they have to take soil samples and test how soft the soil is beneath it. Because if it's too soft and they build a building that's too heavy, it can then like sink into the ground and crumble the foundation, and like the facade can like sink. I don't know, like basically like the building falls
Could be
apart
bad.
over
Yeah.
time. Yeah. And it's, I don't know, I mean, it makes total sense in hindsight. It's like, oh yeah, duh. Like, why wouldn't you want to know that? But prior to this, I had no idea that was a thing. So, and like that, just figuring out that was like $7,000 for that one test. So,
Oh,
and getting like a topographical survey to understand the contours of the land, like that was $2,500. And just like this and that, just like, you know, $5,000 here, $8,000 there. You got to have plenty of cash tucked away before you start jumping into this. And luckily I did. I do.
how do you value a storage unit? Is it because like a commercial property, it seems like you would go off the value of how much money it brings in. Rental property, it's on the comps, but if you do multifamily apartment complexes, it's on the how much money all the money comes in from all the properties or all the doors from the apartments. How do you value a storage unit?
Yeah, it's a good question. Before you have the data, like say on the day you finish construction, nobody's in there yet. It hasn't made a dime. At that point, you value it based on how much you paid to build the thing. But after it's been in existence for a year and you have revenue, that's when you start valuing it based on the income. So I think long term, the income approach is really what matters the most. So if you were to buy any kind of existing storage facility, that income approach is what's probably going to carry the most weight. And you know, the cost to rebuild it is definitely going to matter. Any comparables are going to matter to some extent, but the reason why people buy stuff like this is because of the income they can
It's a
potentially
business.
but yeah. So
Make money. Yeah.
yeah. So but yeah, like for the property taxes, for example, the assessor, what they're going to be looking at on, you know, the day construction is finished initially is just what I paid to build the thing. But eventually what they'll switch to is how much income it's making.
So you have to figure out how many spaces you can have in the self storage and then how much you could charge for each one, let alone the cost. But like just think of the business model year one. Hopefully, you're going to get maybe half or more of it filled up, and then you're going to continually, hopefully, get it filled up to where it's 100%. But is that how you approached? It seems like for me, if I'm going to run a business, I need to figure out my potential income, the total, but then also figure out how much my expenses are. So, how did you play that through your brain as you're saying, I'm going to build one from scratch?
There's a lot of moving pieces. It's kind of like valuing a rental property, but the numbers are just way bigger and there's a lot more moving pieces. Like for example, this particular storage facility is going to have, I think, 260 units, and 90 of those units are going to be outdoor parking, like RV and boat storage. And the rest of them are going to be like metal garage space type storage units. And those metal storage units definitely are going to make a lot more money. Like those are going to bring in more income than the outdoor ones, but that also requires building stuff. So it's going to cost a lot more to construct those. And probably long term, like, you know, once this thing is stabilized and constructed and everything is going fine, eventually we'll probably build buildings over the parking space. Like once that's all but I think for phase one, we just want to get this thing built, get it excavated, level out the property, kind of get that established. But yeah, I mean, in terms of just crunching the numbers and analyzing stuff, it has a lot to do with like what is the cost of steel right now? How much is it gonna cost to build this? And the cost of steel has been going all over the place. It went up like 100% this past year, which has been a big unexpected thing. And and like property taxes are another huge thing that like I have no control over. Like it and it's 36,000 bucks a year and it doesn't really have
That's
anything
$3,000 a month in taxes. Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
Yeah, and it's like
That's
whether
just property taxes alone. There's so many other taxes and fees you're going to have to have.
I know, and it's like whether tenants are in there or not, it doesn't matter. It's like that expense is coming out. And like trying to think of what else there is, like snow removal. And I'm going to be using a company called Easy Storage Solutions, which is handles like the website, the automatic payments. They have a call center. I think that's going to be like 19,000 bucks a year. So just different things like that. And it all kind of adds up. And the numbers sound like really big and scary because it's bigger than anything I've ever done. But again, it's similar to a rental property. You just like add a few more zeros to the end of it. It's just like everything is just scaled up because it's a much bigger operation.
Now, the idea of managing something like that, do you have like an on-site manager for that, or is it something that's going to be all, it's like a code, get in, and you don't have to worry about somebody actually being on site?
Yeah, so this one's going to be built with no office on site. So there's going to be a gate to let people in and out with a little key code thing to let people in. So with that key code, everybody's going to have their own individual code assigned to them. So we're going to know who's coming in and who's going out. There's also going to be security cameras just, to see who's coming in and going out. And I live 15 minutes away from this thing, so it's not hard for me to get there. I'll also be finding, what they call boots on the ground, probably, within a block or so from the place so they can check on it on a daily or weekly basis. It's not too expensive to hire those kinds of people. It's funny. I'm a part of several different Facebook groups for storage facility owners. And I saw somebody ask on there the other day, how many people out there manage storage facilities on a part-time basis? And I thought it was a really good question that I hadn't even thought to ask, but like everybody does. It was crazy. Like almost everybody in the group, that was their situation. And one person's like, yeah, like for the past 13 years, I've managed, 150 units and it takes me no more than 5 hours a week. I work 60 hours a week and it takes me 5 hours a week to do that. So it's totally feasible to do this on a part-time basis. And I think occasionally you'll have little issues that'll blow up and it'll take a little bit more time. But for the most part, it's not a terribly time intensive thing, especially if you find those boots on the ground to help you out.
Just like in any business. And that's another thing that I'm bringing you on. Actually, in fact, I'll tell everybody, Seth, you know this, but you were literally the first person that I called when I thought of the idea of having the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference. An idea of bringing people together of all different types of investing, not flipping or wholesaling. That's not necessarily investing, in my opinion. That's a job. Like you have to flip the next property to make more money. I don't want to do that. It's too much work. I want to do something where it worked one time and it keeps making money. But anyways, I called you up and I said, hey, Seth, this is my idea of creating a conference where we can basically an event. We could bring all of our communities together and have our own meetup, have our own time together because it's going to take a lot of work. Why don't I just do it for all of us, investor influencers, so we can all bring everybody together? But yeah, you were literally the first person that I called. You said, "Hey, it sounds like a great idea," and I'm like, "Man, it would be so awesome for me, definitely, but also my audience to learn about land investing." Give us a brief overview of like land investing because we've already had that whole entire overview. Sorry, walkthrough on the previous episode. I think it was probably like in the 60s or 70s or something like that, episode wise, number wise. But give us a big, broad overview of how land investing works and also the ways that we can make money flipping one. And you said something to me this last time was passive income. I was like, wow, you can make passive income from it. Like give us a big broad overview and then how we can make money from land.
Yeah, well, the whole idea with the land flipping business is to find highly motivated sellers. It's kind of like how you find motivated sellers with any type of real estate, but the difference with land is that it's far less competitive than houses. And I used to be able to say there was zero competition. I won't say that anymore. That's not really the case, but it's still very low competition. And part of the reason is because when most real estate investors hear about land, they just kind of put their blinders on. They don't understand it. Like it doesn't click. They don't.
It
And I
seems
had this.
boring too,
Yeah, I had the same thing when I first heard about land. It was just like, what? Like, why? Like, where's the cash flow? Where's the potential? That's just boring. I don't get it.
I will pause you really quick and say I personally believe boring is so awesome. I don't want to be called by my property manager. I don't even want to talk to them for months at a time. I just want to get a check. That is the most boring thing because I could go do fun things without worrying about my business. So I interrupted, but I want you to keep going.
Yeah, and with vacant land, there is no property manager. It's just dirt. So it's I mean, there's literally no people at all, except for the person you're buying it from and the person you're selling it to. And it's just a matter of understanding where and how to find these people who own land and don't want it. And these people are all over the place. They're in your backyard, they're in my backyard, and there are places where you can find these lists of property owners and download them and send them mail and say, hey, I see you own vacant land. I'm looking to buy vacant land. Let me know if you want to sell it. And people, granted, it takes a lot of mail to find these people, but people will respond and call you back. And you can even send them blind offers, we call it in the industry, where you literally, the first piece of mail you send them is a low offer and it's a cash offer. And a lot of people, again, in numbers, will respond to this stuff and say, yes, I'll sell my property. And this is how people buy land free and clear for anywhere from 10% to 40%, sometimes 50% of market value if they're getting really courageous. But once you own land like this, you can turn around and sell it for anywhere from, 50% to 80% of market value, maybe even 100%. And again, there's no loans involved because if you're able to buy land for a super cheap price, you don't need loans. And I've literally never taken out a loan ever for a vacant lot that I've bought. And it's a beautiful thing when you can buy a vacant lot. And I mean, preferably the goal is to turn around and sell it as quickly as you can. But if you want to, you can leave it alone for 10 years. And when you come back and see it again, it's no different than when you left it. I mean, it's just land. In terms of passive income, so what most people will do if they want passive income, and you don't have to do this, some people just sell it cash, but what a lot of people will do is they will sell that property with seller financing because remember, you bought it for cash. So you own the thing free and clear. And when you sell it on terms, you can collect a down payment and then collect installment payments for the next year, 3 years, 5 years, however long you want. And the cool thing about that is that you can collect most of your investment on that down payment. And then for the next however long, all the payments you get are pure profit. And the downside of this is that it takes a while to get all your profit back, but it creates cash flow. And, in the mind of this borrower, it's their property. So they're not going to be calling you with all their problems. So it's kind of like a rental property in that, it's a source of cash flow. The differences, though, are that it's not going to last forever. Eventually, they're going to pay off and it's going to go away. And it's also, it's not as big of a payment in most cases. So you would probably need, 5 of them or something to, if each one was maybe like a couple $100, you need a little bit more, but that's one way you can create passive income with land. Another way would be to buy a mobile home lot and lease that to a mobile homeowner. You could lease your land to a billboard company, to a cell phone tower company, that kind of thing. Solar power company. There's all kinds of ways you can make money from land this way. Farmer. I mean, it's kind of about understanding what kind of land you're looking for, what can be done with it, where can you find that kind of land. And with tools like DataTree, you can filter lists of properties specifically based on the zoning and what it can be used for. So it's actually a lot more efficient and feasible to find lists of these types of properties than you might think, especially if you know what counties in which you're looking for and how this can be done. So there's like a whole science behind this, and some people have become masters at this stuff. But the point is, vacant land, if you kind of understand, what types of properties you're looking for, whether you want to go for cash flow or just flipping for quick cash, it brings so many advantages to the table that other real estate investing strategies just can't do. They're way harder. They require a lot more risk. I mean, I know household wholesalers who spend 10 times more on marketing and just take massive risks and sometimes lose huge amounts of money that a land investor just doesn't have to do because the competition is just not there. They don't have to fight against the clock in the same way.
The people that are owning the land, sometimes they just inherited it. They're like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. I just got a tax bill I got to worry about. And then all of a sudden they got, oh, hey, I'll give you, I don't know, $500 for your vacant land lot. And you're like, oh, okay, it's better than spending that much money in taxes. Let me just go ahead and get rid of it.
Yeah, many times that's the case. And I think one thing just to illustrate the point is when you look at all the land in the US, 6% of that land is developed. So we're talking, again, all the land of the US, 6% is developed. That's what all the real estate investors are going after. And even less than that are considered houses that most people are, targeting. So of the rest, that, what is it, 94%? Granted, a lot of that is government land and other stuff that we can't go after, but a bunch of it is vacant land that we can go after that most real estate investors just don't even have it on their radar. So it's just this like vast ocean that we have access to that a lot of other real estate investors are just kind of blind to. So it's a really cool opportunity, and for the few people who are willing to go after it, it's sort of a blue ocean in a lot of ways.
So everybody needs to go to the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference to learn more about this with Seth, as well as he and I are literally should be walking the halls and talking to people. You can definitely tell I'm very extroverted. Seth's a little more introverted, but Seth is fantastic at helping people, and so he's definitely going to be around helping everybody. So you definitely want to go to the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference as well as learn from Seth. So Seth, people are going to want to listen to your podcast. I've been on your podcast a couple times. Check out like your YouTube channel is fantastic, Seth, by the way. So keep it up there, and his website's fantastic. So how can people find you, Seth? Because they're going to want to get a hold of you or listen to everything you put out.
Well, retipster.com is sort of like the main home base, but if you're on YouTube, you can check out, search for RETipster. That's our YouTube channel. The RETipster podcast, RETipster on Facebook, RETipster on Instagram, wherever you are, just look for RETipster and you'll probably find something from me out there.
Love it. Yeah, definitely check out his podcast too, because it's really, he's got a lot of great people on there. Seth, I'm super pumped to hang out with you
Yeah,
again
me
at the
too.
Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference. And so everybody, you got to get your tickets, rubcon.com, REWBCON.com. It's going to be here in March, which is coming up pretty quick. And it's going to be a lot of fun hanging out together with everybody. So Seth, thanks so much for being on the show, man. I really
You
appreciate it.
bet. Thanks for having me, Dustin. Appreciate it.